If you're having low back pain, there are two things which should come first, in my opinion, and they should run like a thread through your entire recovery into your athletic training. And that is bracing your core while maintaining a neutral spine. These things are rarely talked about in low back pain healing, but they're so effective that patients often report that just bracing their core will alleviate some of their early back pain while walking and standing. Now, before we get started, I need you to be willing to take all responsibility for any injury or pain from doing the exercises that I suggest. As long as you can take that responsibility, we're ready to get started. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to brace your core muscles. Then I'm going to teach you how to maintain a neutral spine, which bracing your core muscles will help. Then I'm going to walk you through 4 exercises that you can do to start healing your lower back while using bracing and using a neutral spine. It's going to be a little bit challenging, but the benefits will be well worth it. Your core is made up of 3 sets of muscles. There's the front, the back, and then the side. Ones in the front are the abdominal muscles as well as the psoas. I'm going to refer to both of these just as the abs for the purposes of this video, shorthand. In the back, you have the spinal erector group, or SEGs. And then on the side, you have the transverse abdominis, or the TVA. The TVA is the most unfamiliar to people, so let's start by learning how to contract and maintain the contraction in the transverse abdominis. So I want you to put your thumbs into the fleshy part of your sides, and I want you to blow a little puff of air out. And you should feel the muscles pushing against your thumbs. Now see if you can maintain that contraction. And if you're new to this, it will start to wane because the muscles are inactive and you're learning to activate them. So when you feel the contraction starting to loosen, I want you to blow out another puff of air and contract them strongly again. Now try inhaling and exhaling 2 or 3 times. See if you can keep that contraction on, puffing out to contract suddenly when you need to. You might also be aware that you're contracting other parts of your body, like your front core or your back core, abs and SEGs, excuse me. Okay, so now let's add the other parts of the core. So let's start with the TVA. Contracting your sides, contracting your TVA. Now contract your abdominals, breathe out if you need to. And now contract your spinal erector group. And what you should feel is a rather challenging, but very, very obvious contraction of all 3 sides of your core. You may be able to hear it's becoming a little difficult for me to talk because I'm taking the intensity up to like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So it's pretty difficult for me to speak at this point. I'm not going to ask you to talk, but I am going to ask you to breathe. And every time you feel the contraction starting to wane in a certain area of the core, I want you to renew that contraction using a strong exhale. So breathe in and out. Let's do 3 cycles. Start to become aware of how the exhale renews the contractions automatically. See if you can feel any spots or areas where you tend to become inactive or let go, and squeeze those a little bit stronger. Okay, relax. So I'm starting to feel already like pretty warm from that. You may be feeling pretty warm too. Also, you should be aware or curious as to whether or not your low back pain increased or decreased with that. What we just practiced is called breathing and bracing. It's necessary when you're doing any kind of physical activity, working out or picking something up, carrying groceries, picking up your kid, when your dog lunges, that kind of thing. Those are all common ones for me. It's also really, really necessary in order to maintain the contour of your spine so that the shock is distributed evenly through all the vertebrae rather than concentrating in one place, putting more pressure on one disc or one set of nerves than your body's meant to handle. So now let's look at how to find and hold a neutral spine using the brace. So do that spinal erector group contraction, extend your spine, and now let go of the spinal erectors and contract the other side. Contract your front and go into flexion. Now twice, go back and forth between extension and flexion, and get right in the middle. So you have a healthy amount of extension in your back, but not too much extension, and you don't have a flat back or too much flexion. And from right here, without changing the angle of your spine, without changing the angle of your pelvis either, start to tighten your low back and your abdominal muscles in your TVA. So first tighten your spinal erector group, then your abdominals, then your transverse abdominis. And there you have a neutral spine and a braced core on all three sides. So now let's do 3 breaths like that. I'm just holding my arm up to get it out of the way so you can see my sides and back and belly a little bit more easily. So 3 breaths. Press into your TVA. Concentrate on keeping your low back neutral. Don't let it extend, don't let it flex, keep it neutral. And relax. Okay. You may notice tension in other places. This is completely normal when you're starting to learn to use one area of your body that's new. It's totally natural to contract other things, like my neck muscles are getting pretty tired. I even feel some recruitment in my upper trapezius, even in my pecs, and my leg muscles, I'm starting to feel those. But keep practicing, and day by day, you'll start to strip away all the unnecessary tension until it's really only the front, the sides, and the back of the core that are being used, or being used the most. Also, feel free to set the intensity at a level that feels right for you at the time. When I'm first finding my neutral spine, I don't need to brace my core up to like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But I just brace a little bit, like a 1 or a 2 out of 10. Maybe in the beginning, you may not be able to feel such subtle contractions of the musculature, but eventually you will as your awareness starts to increase. And awareness is like the most important thing underpinning your education about your body, which informs and allows you to heal. Now that we've gone through how to brace your core and how to maintain a neutral spine while bracing your core, now let's do a couple exercises. By the way, we just did the first exercise that I want you to practice, which is finding a neutral spine and then bracing your core while standing up and taking 3 breaths. That's about 10 seconds. So you can do 15, 20, lengthen it or decrease it, make the brace more intense or less intense, but do things intentionally and make sure you're really, really checking in. Okay, where am I going soft? Where do I need to renew the contraction? Do I need to use a breath? Is my back starting to flex or extend? All these things have to be done intentionally by choice. By the way, you're gonna hear me repeat these steps a lot throughout this video. This is intentional. Repetition is the mother of learning. Stick with it if you can make it all the way through the video so that you understand and can start to practice the movements, it'll be worth it. One of the most common exercises I give people when they're recovering from lower back pain is some kind of front core rectus abdominis activation. It kind of looks like a crunch, but we're not using that big a range of motion. So laying down, always lay down on your side, then turn onto your back. That's the safest way. My feet are flat on the floor, my knees are up. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna stick my thumbs in my side, and I'm gonna exhale strongly to find that transverse abdominis muscle. All right, now I've got that on, I'm gonna contract my abdomen. And now I'm also gonna contract my spinal erector group. And this is gonna bring my lower back off the floor just a little bit. I don't wanna extend it all the way off the floor, and I don't want my lower back pressed down into the floor with my pelvis tucked, the way that a lot of us have been traditionally taught in some kind of lower back rehab context. Neutral spine. So one more time, contract we're gonna start with the low back this time. Contract the low back, then contract the abdomen, then contract your transverse abdominis. Now see if you can maintain contraction in the front, the side, and the back while you lift and lower your shoulders up off the floor. Just go very, very easy. I'm gonna snail my head up and then lift my shoulders up just a little bit and hold. And I'm feeling my abdomen starting to let go, so I'm gonna renew that tension there.
checking my transverse abdominis. I'm renewing that tension. I feel like I'm really struggling to turn this on here. So I'm gonna give a strong exhale, push into my sides and give a strong exhale. There we go. And I'm really using my neck very strongly, so I'm gonna try to relax that. That's another video. Bring my shoulders and my neck back down. Woo. One of the next most useful exercises I give people is the quadruped. This is extension. My low back is contracted. This is flexion. My abdominals are contracted. I want to get somewhere in the middle. So my lower back is tight and my abdomen is tight. Then I'm going to check for that tone in the transverse abdominis muscle. And that's a neutral spine. Now, once I'm there, I'm going to take just a little bit of weight out of one knee at a time while maintaining contact with the floor. Some people, if you try to get them to pick their knee up this far off the floor, it provokes lower back pain. So I'm picking my knee up just a little bit. You can't see it, but the weight is coming out of my left knee right here. And I'm putting a lot of weight down into my left hand. Now I'm going to change sides. I'm taking a little bit of weight now out of my right knee, pushing down through my right arm. Hold for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Remember, what we're focusing on is contracting the core, the front, the sides, and the back. That's the focus of this exercise. So I'm lifting one knee out of the floor and then putting that back in, renewing the contraction through the transverse abdominis, the front and the back, taking the other knee out of the floor. Using the breath, a strong inhale, a strong exhale to assist. And when I feel that contraction starting to let go a little bit, I'm going to renew it by using a strong exhale. Now my left knee is off the floor. Now my right knee. Now my left knee. And what you want to watch for when you do this is you want to prevent any kind of leaning this way. See how my back is tilting downward? In the opposite direction, it looks like I'm picking this hip up. All right, so as long as you're not leaning this way, as long as you're not closing one side more than the other as you start to shift your weight, shimmying your waist like that, then you're good to go.
I'm going to take 15 seconds to ask you for a donation. If this video helps you, please say thank you by sending a donation using one of the links in the description. Your helping to support me financially makes an enormous difference to my morale and frees me up from doing other jobs so I can do this more. Thank you. Now on with the video. So the third movement we're going to practice today is the side plank. Now, there are two ways to do this. Standing up, which is really easy and very low impact. I'm going to show you that last. Or on the floor, which is how I try to start people. And if it's too much, then I have them do it standing up. But on the floor is, I think, a better way to feel the transverse abdominis because the effect of side bending and gravity and coming out of that makes it really obvious. You'll see that in a second. Elbow into the floor. My hips are flexed, knees are flexed. Any degree is fine for now as long as you feel stable. And we're going to go through the same process. So I'm going to contract my lower back muscles. I'm extending my back. I'm going to keep those on and contract my abdominal muscles. Then I'm going to contract my TVA. Try to keep all three of those surfaces on. And then I'm going to lift my hips up off the floor. I think my elbow is a little bit far away. I'm going to lift my hips up off the floor. Working really, really, really hard to keep my TVA, my low back, and my abdomen on. For some people, they're going to start off like this. Don't do that. Try to get your hips even right away so that your spine is neutral, right? You can tell because you can tell your midline will be more or less neutral rather than curved or side flexed like that. And maybe at first, just taking some of the weight out of the hip will be enough, even if the hip doesn't leave the floor. Okay, now if that's too much, you can do it against a wall, which looks like this. Little backlighting never hurt anybody. So I'm standing kind of, I would say about one body width away from the wall right now. I've got these weights here, so that's kind of my default. And I'm gonna put my elbow into the wall. I have a slight lean already, and I'm gonna go through the same process. Let me get the camera closer now so that you can see a little bit better. So now I'm gonna contract my abs, contract my low back, and then my TVA. Try to keep all three of those on as I lean my weight into the wall. I'm gonna take one step away from the wall to increase the angle. Again, renew that contraction, lower back, abdomen, TVA. You can hold it here for 10 seconds. That would be plenty for someone who's just starting. 20 seconds if you can manage it. 30 is even better, but that comes with time. If you're having any sharp pain, burning pain in your low back, your SI joint, your sciatic nerve, any place like that, then come out of it, come back to neutral. Whoa, I'm dizzy there. Come back to neutral, be really, really gentle with yourself. It takes time to work up to these things. All these things are strenuous, sometimes in a way that's hidden. Usually by the time that we develop low back pain, some of our musculature is inactive, meaning it hasn't been used, it hasn't been loaded, it hasn't been tested in such a long time that our body has down-regulated the contraction of those muscle fibers. So we're using like a percentage of our TVA, percentage of our rectus abdominis, percentage of our spinal erector group, etc. Right? So it takes a while to wake those things up. So if you could do 3 sets of 10-second holds, turning all 3 sides of the core on while standing, and then 3 times 10 seconds, all 3 core muscles on in a crunch, and then in a quadruped, and then in some kind of side plank, some kind of side lean. That would be really good. You do that for about 3 days, 5 days, then you can progress a little bit by increasing the time. If you found this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps my morale. Also, if you need private coaching, if you're having low back pain and you need private coaching, or if you want to make your athletic performance better, yes, even with my dad bod, I can help you too. You know where to find me. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. And yeah, good luck, everybody. Okay, take care, everybody. I love you. Good luck.